Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day is regarding the Supreme Court hearing the case of Joe Biden's student loan cancellation plan. And we got video footage of Randy Weingarten on the steps of the Supreme Court screaming to the skies, whining like a little baby, as you'd expect from a leftist, saying that it's not fair that people have to pay off their student loans. Let that one sink in. We got all the details for you. But before we jump into all that, make sure you head over to our brand new website, baldbrad.com, which is a one-stop shop for y'all. Link is in the description. You can catch our podcast there. You can watch our YouTube videos, read our blog posts. We got it all for you. And if you didn't hear the big reveal over the weekend, we also got a book launching March 13th on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble's titled Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Folks, this book completely obliterates and destroys the progressive left and the Democrat Party's ideology, because it is their ideology that is going to destroy this country from the inside out, much in the same way of how the Greeks sent in the Trojan horse during the Trojan War to destroy Troy from the inside out. The progressive left's ideology is going to do the same thing with the United States unless we recognize it and equip ourselves with the information we need to dismantle and destroy their narrative, their ideology, and the book does just that. If you love Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, the guys from the Daily Wire, if you love Charlie Kirk, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, all the big conservatives, Republicans, you're going to love this book, folks. It's a must read. You could buy the ebook now and pre-order a paperback and hardcover version as well by heading over to Barnes & Noble's or Amazon or clicking the link on our website. Make sure you pre-order yourself a book today. Again, it releases March 13th. And if that wasn't enough, we also got a store here for y'all. We got merch. If you go again to our store on baldbrad.com, you can get yourself a t-shirt right now. These shirts are awesome. They're awesome quality, and they look really sick, folks. We got our own image. We got our own setup. We got mugs. We got hats. We got stickers. We got hoodies. We got it all, folks. Head over to baldbrad.com if you haven't already. Get yourself the book. Get yourself some merchandise, some swagger, and look good and look like an American patriot, because let's be honest, folks, Bald Brad Show viewers are American patriots, and we uphold the values of this great nation. Again, head over to baldbrad.com or get yourself a copy at Amazon or Barnes & Noble's. Well, with that being said, we got conservative justices on the Supreme Court taking aim at President Joe Biden's plan to cancel some $400 billion, yes, folks, billion with a B, in student loans and sticking taxpayers with the bill. See, now you're responsible for somebody else's debt that they took out voluntarily. Regardless of a national emergency, they voluntarily took out that risk, but now that risk is put onto you and I. Isn't that just lovely? Implying congressional approval may be required. In August, Biden announced that the Department of Education, under the Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, would cancel up to $20,000 in unpaid loans for 40 million borrowers. The administration claimed the plan, legal under the HEROES Act of 2003, enacted during the Iraq War, to offer relief to service members and their families by temporarily freezing their student loans during times of war or a national emergency. And so what the Democrats are doing here is they're taking this 2003 act, the HEROES Act, that was for our veterans to temporarily freeze their student loans because they're serving our country in war. They're trying to take that and go, well, there was a pandemic, there was COVID-19, a national emergency, so let's wipe out their debt, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. I'd also like to point out, Joe Biden said that the pandemic's over. There's no national emergency anymore. It's all done and kaput, but we're still trying to push this through, which was a question by Jackie Heinrich many weeks ago to Karine Jean-Pierre. And Karine Jean-Pierre was being clear with all of us, which she wasn't. We never got an answer, by the way, for that. Well, Chief Justice John Roberts pointed out that in 2020, the High Court blocked the Trump administration from eliminating the Obama-era Dreamers program, insisting he had to get Congress's approval. Justice Clarence Thomas said that Cardona's order runs into Congress's appropriations authority. The issues before the court in Biden v. Nebraska are whether 6 states have standing to challenge the plan and whether the plan exceeds Cardona's statutory authority or it's arbitrary. Meaning, does the Secretary of Education or the Education Secretary have the right and the legal authority to do this in conjunction with utilizing the HEROES Act when there is no national emergency anymore, quoted by the president numerous times? But, again, this Democrat Party, they want to take, and never give, and always just steal from your pocketbook and put it into somebody else's. And in other words, folks, it's just a redistribution of wealth at the end of the day. That's all it is. And they've been talking about doing that for decades, Well, the HEROES Act permits the Secretary of Education to waive or modify student loan requirements for people residing or working in a disaster area related to war or a national emergency. U.S. Solicitor General argued for the Biden administration that the COVID pandemic qualifies as such a circumstance. Maybe it did before slightly, but boy, oh boy, is that some twisting of words there for that HEROES Act. But we're no longer in a pandemic. And get this, the authors of the legislation of the HEROES Act of 2003 named the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students, hence HEROES Act. Congressman Howard Buck and John Klein, a 25-year veteran of the Marines, never intended their legislation to be used as a means of blanket cancellation of loans. The HEROES Act never authorized loan forgiveness. Again, let me repeat that. The HEROES Act never authorized loan forgiveness, but did give the Secretary of Education authority to freeze loan payments, which they did do under the pandemic for students whose education was interrupted by military service. I mean, this is frustrating, guys, because you really see the overreach and the power of the federal government trying to sit there and steal from you, actively steal from you right now, and switching legislation to fit a certain narrative that they want. Because look, they made a bad choice of taking out a student loan and going into a major and receiving a job that they're not able to pay off that loan. And by the way, when I was listening to this video clip that we're going to play in just one moment, I was watching it, but I was also reading the live chat of all these people going, I've been paying off my loan for 18 years and it hasn't gone down. Why is that my fault? You took out the loan voluntarily. Why am I having to pay for it? I didn't take out the damn loan. By the way, I took out a $60,000 student loan and I paid it off in 2 years. I didn't ask for anybody for a handout. I went and worked multiple jobs to pay it off. But this is what people want. They always want a handout. Always want a handout. I mean, really see from JFK's time, ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I mean, it really shows you the swing in the Democrat Party of how far left they've gone. I mean, JFK's Democrat would be a centrist now, put it that way. Well, Biden's plan violated the HEROES Act in several ways, according to a brief filed by the Pacific Legal Foundation. In addition to the act not authorizing complete student loan forgiveness, it also bars any action that could impair the integrity of the student financial assistance programs, the foundation argued. The brief also noted that the Biden policy makes no effort to isolate borrowers who can show they suffered economic harm as a direct result of the pandemic, and pointed out there has been a moratorium on payments since it began. And I would like to also point out they did the same thing with the COVID-19 stimulus checks. They passed it out to everybody. There was no criteria really for it. I believe the criteria, what was a certain level of income threshold based on a prior year's tax return for some of the checks that were offered. But other than that, not everybody needed a check. Only some people did, meaning we just shelled out trillions of dollars, inflated the economy, and now we're dealing with this whole inflation crisis, a 40-year high that we haven't seen in 4 decades. But, they're going to do this whole thing here again, just passing out money. Basically, it is redistribution of wealth and passing out checks like they're hotcakes, except you're doing it in the form of relieving somebody of their debt, of which they took out, again, voluntarily. Well, let's go to the clip here of Randi Weingarten, the one that was the head of, I think she either was or is still the head of like one of the biggest teachers unions in the United States, screaming to the skies, complaining about all this stuff, saying how it's not fair. I mean, she looks like a high schooler complaining to their parents about not even being able to get a cell phone or going to their friend's birthday party or the school dance or whatever it may be. Just watch it. Let's just check it out.
Ends meet. Without further ado, let's give it up for Becky Weingarten.
Are you ready to cancel student debt? Oh no, the judges can't hear you, particularly the judge that actually had student debt. Are you ready to cancel student debt? Do we need the Supreme Court to do the right thing? Do we need the Supreme Court to do the legal thing? So look, I'm a school teacher, and I'm also a lawyer. But normally what happens is that when the government has the authority to get something done, like the Secretary of Education has the authority under the Higher Education blah, 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 blah law.
Wow, stellar lawyer there, huh? The higher education, blah, 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 law. By the way, we just read you everything about the HEROES Act and what it was utilized going back to 2003 for military service members that are in war to temporarily basically stall their student loans until they get back from war for serving war. Last time I checked, none of these people were in war. None of them were in the Iraq war. There was a national emergency, but like I said, that was for military servicemen. We just talked about the people that wrote the legislation. It was never for a blanket cancellation or cancellation just in general. But now, again, they have the authority to do all this. Somehow they got the authority. As to when they got the authority, I'm not sure, but they're going to claim that they have it, and so that everybody else gets their debt relieved and all this other nonsense.
When they have the authority to get something done, it doesn't get here. It never gets here. Because what happens is the lower courts say, here's the law, here's the authority, let's get it done. So this is my question for all of us. And I think Representative Presley said it as well. We've watched what the cases were last year. So we're here outside, but we are wondering, is the Supreme Court going to follow the law, or is the Supreme Court going to follow corporate interests? And I know we're wondering that. And what I'm asking you to do, regardless of what happens today, is keep hope alive.
How about regardless of whatever happens, you give good financial advice of pay off your loans? How about not take out debt that you can't pay for and expect somebody else to pay for it? How about that for some advice? How about not going to a 4-year university knowing that you're not going to be able to pay it? Or how about getting a major that's going to be able to pay off that debt, not going into underwater basket weaving or lesbian dance theory and expecting $100,000 when you took out $200,000 of student loans? I mean, it is so baffling here, the lack of personal awareness, the lack of personal responsibility for someone's actions, and it's always somebody else's fault. So now it's your and I's fault here, and we have to pay for it and inherit that risk of somebody else being a knucklehead and not assessing that risk in the first place of them taking out a loan and being able to pay it off or not being able to pay it off. That's how this all works now. Again, it's going to start with student loans. What's stopping the government from having that trickle down into, well, let's pay off people's mortgages now. Oh, let's pay off people's auto loans. Where does it stop? Where does it stop?
We know, and we say, remember I said I'm a school teacher, we've said to young adults, and there are many here, I love all these caps, we've said to young adults over and over and over again, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. How many of us have heard that?
Not many people.
That's all? How many of us have said that? How many of us have gone to college? But part of this bargain is this.
So because in school, they heard a bunch of teachers, again, I'm an educator myself, say, oh, go to a 4-year, go to a 4-year, go to a 4-year, which, by the way, I don't preach. I say if you want to go to a 4-year, and that's what you want to do, go to a 4-year. But please know that there are a lot of trade schools that you can go to and not go to a 4-year university and still make 6 figures. You can become an electrician. You can become a carpenter, whatever it may be, a welder, right? Work for the union. Like, you can make 6 figures, a lot of money without ever going to college, taking out massive debt and then not being able to pay it off. Or you go to a trade school, not take out any debt or maybe a small amount of debt and make a lot of money and good money. But, again, you got to blame somebody else, right? So now we're blaming the teachers or blaming some other person that told you to go to a 4-year, so you followed suit and took out massive amount of debt. It's such nonsense. You took out, not you, Bob Bradshaw, the listeners, but whoever took out the debt, they did it. Not me, not you.
If we go to college and we stay in college, we need to actually make sure that it's affordable, that it doesn't take everything and everything that our families can do. And frankly, that is what this machinery was supposed to be about. We go to college, we take out student loans that were supposed to be affordable, and we're supposed to be able to deal and thrive and pay our student loans back in an affordable way. But what has happened?
I would like to point out, I was never guaranteed that deal. This is all news to me, by the way. You don't have to go to an expensive university. You don't have to go to Harvard or Yale or a private university. I went to USC, which is a private university, but that was a personal goal of myself, was to go to a nice, acclaimed personal university. I could have gone to, I don't know, Long Beach State or Cal State Fullerton or a cheaper school, which I did do for my bachelor's. And I came out of college with no debt, by the way. But if I wanted to go to a expensive private school like USC, I had to take out student loans. But I didn't have to go to that school. I could have just gone to, again, for my master's, I could have gone to Long Beach State or a cheaper school. I chose to do that, and I didn't expect a handout. So because you sat there and made the wrong choices to go to a certain university, now we're all responsible for that debt of your decisions?
Happened is that they have become unaffordable. They've become unaffordable. They've not people, and when people make a mistake or when they don't pay the exact amount, all of a sudden one is in foreclosure and one is in all sorts of other things, and they become even more unaffordable. And so that is why President Biden said, we are going to deal with that. As we deal with the end of the pandemic, we're going to deal with that. We're not going to start student debt again without actually making a down payment of it. And the Secretary of Education had the right to do it. And frankly, and this is what really pisses me off, during the pandemic, we understood that small businesses were hurting. And we helped them. And it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. Big businesses were hurting, and we helped them, and it didn't go to the Supreme Court to challenge it. All of a sudden, when it's about our students, they challenge it, the corporations challenge it, the student loan lenders challenge it. That is not right, that is not fair, and that is what we are fighting as well when we say, cancel student debt. This is about the people, and it is about the people's future, and it is about all of your futures. So, that's why when I started and said, whatever they do, regardless of what they do, we need to keep this fight up. That is how we make good with the students of America.
She is out of breath, man. I mean, again, it's so, if you had to picture a progressive leftist, you would picture somebody with short hair, right? Slightly overweight. I'm not trying to just hound on her, but screaming and whining on the steps of the Supreme Court or out there in public, which we've all seen video clips of. I mean, this is literally the epitome of somebody going, it's not fair. It's not fair that we're not getting our student loans paid off or relieved. Like, where do you come off on just expecting things from the American taxpayer for a decision that you made before the pandemic? Maybe there was some sort of tiny conversation that could be had that you took out student loans during the pandemic. Maybe. But you also had the government shut down businesses, shut down the entire economy without any relief. And by the way, the student debt was frozen during COVID, meaning there was nothing happening with it. It wasn't like it's accumulating interest. It wasn't like your debt was increasing over that time. It just was a blanket stop on it for the most part. But, hey, again, we're all responsible for this stuff. This is how it works. Democrats can never take personal responsibility. Prime example, Joe Biden. Joe Biden still, in the last 2 years, has done nothing wrong. He hasn't made a single mistake as president. Just ask Karine Jean-Pierre. We cover it here every single week on the Bull Brad Show with the White House press briefings. But let me know what you think about that one in the comment section below or the live chat, because I'm sure you guys got a lot to say, because boy, oh boy, so do I. We could have an entire hour-long episode just on student loan debt forgiveness and then the shenanigans that's going on with our education system and people like Randy Weingarten stepping up on the Supreme Court steps, screaming to the skies a bunch of nonsense. Well, moving into our second story of the day. This one is wild, folks, and this is making airwaves. Florida student accused of attacking teacher's aide who took Nintendo Switch will be charged as an adult. I love the fact they put Florida student accused of attacking teacher. You guys, we have it on tape. We literally have it on tape here. And I might have to blur some of this. This video actually might be taken down. I got to be careful. But this comes from Fox News. It was released here. Allegedly, right? It just may or may not have happened. You guys tell me if this happened or not. This teacher gets attacked and knocked out. And I got to blur some of this because it's just rough. But stomping on her, for those that are listening on the podcast, taking 10 body shots here, and then he'll start pounding her in the head as she's knocked out. just wailing on her. This guy's like 270, like 6'7" or something like that. Basically like a linebacker in the NFL. Now he's stomping her. He was thrown on the ground, and it looks like you have a Marine right there, probably visiting the school doing some sort of recruitment. And the teachers are trying to pull him off. He pulls off for a little bit. He jumps back on him, and now he's finally subdued, and now he's laying on his back. Oh God, something happened here. It's so baffling. And I like to point out, this happens all the time in the education system. This happens all the time. You guys might be baffled me going, what? No. Happens on a weekly basis across the United States. Teachers being attacked, assaulted, verbally abused all the time in public school system. So the Florida student was accused of violently attacking a high school teacher's aide and will be charged as an adult because he's 17 and being held on a $1 million bond. I mean, the lawsuit that has to happen here is going to be astronomical for this teacher. Officials say the physical altercation began a 17-year-old student and teacher's aide happened on February 21st when the teacher's aide took away the student's Nintendo Switch during class time. Why does he have a Nintendo Switch in class? Again, it's the same thing with the cell phones. Some people go, oh, well, this is a Nintendo Switch. It might be his entire worldview. This kind of comes from Brandon Tatum, who I'm a big fan of. Me and him have actually done an Instagram live before talking about the scriptures. I love Brandon Tatum, but look, you could say, look, he's in a group home. He didn't grow up with a father. This might be his entire worldview, having this one item, and you just took it away from him. Why does he have a Nintendo Switch in the classroom? You could say the same thing about any object, a cell phone, a piece of clothing, right? There's certain clothing that people are attached to. Maybe they got it passed down from a family member. There's certain things as you don't need it in class. You need a pen, pencil, paper, iPad, laptop, whatever the school provides to get your work done. You don't need a Nintendo Switch during class time. And by the way, there's teachers that get assaulted for taking people's cell phones away because that's a massive problem in the classroom. But we can never talk about that because it's always the teacher's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. It's the school's fault. We can't take people's cell phones away because they'll start hyperventilating. I am not kidding. I have friends that are teachers. Obviously, I'm a teacher myself. I have taken a cell phone away and I've had people literally start hyperventilating in front of me, break down, screaming and crying. These are seniors in high school, you guys. These are 17 and 18-year-olds hysterically crying like you would see from a progressive leftist as if Donald Trump just won the election, crying because they can't have their cell phone in their hand or a few feet away from them. It's crazy. And this all starts in the home, by the way. This isn't something that I'm not your parent. I'm not the dad. I'm just the guy that's trying to teach mathematics. But you got Nintendo Switches, cell phones, all this stuff going on in the classroom. The student became upset at the teacher aide after she took away, again, his Nintendo Switch during class. According to WESH TV, the teenager is considered a special needs student. And I just want to point out, special needs doesn't necessarily mean so much cognitive. You could be having low grades, or maybe you're technically a student that has a lot of discipline issues, and they kind of threw you into that category of special needs student. But regardless, it doesn't give you a right to sit there and actually harm a teacher like this. Surveillance video released by the school shows the 6'6", 270-pound student running up to the teacher's aide, pushing her to the ground, and then continue to punch her, which we saw. The student is seen on surveillance video punching the employee and doing all these other things. Sheriff Rick Stalley said the teacher could have been killed. Yeah. You guys, 6'6", 270? The kid would beat me up. I'm about 5'10", 185. That's a massive dude just raining blows on you. Luckily, most of those beginning blows were to the body at least. But then as you saw, shifted to the head. Like I said, I mean, the lawsuit here has to be in the millions for this teacher. Because what I'm expecting to happen is, or had happened, this isn't the first encounter. Usually with students, you can actually trace back all their discipline that they've ever had, going back to like middle school or sometimes even elementary school. And so if this had been going on, if the teacher actually warned the administration multiple times the student is dangerous and they never acted upon it, boy, oh boy, that teacher is going to be raking in the dough on this one. This could have been a homicide, Stalley said. When you push down like that, they hit their head. You never know the outcome. Yeah, I mean, you could sit there and hit something and blow out your trachea. You could have a blood clot in the brain. I mean, there is so much that can go on with this. So when this kid was arrested by police, body cam footage showed the student saying F you to one of the deputies before he was arrested. Well, I don't want to go to jail. Well, you should have thought about that before you decided to knock out a teacher, rain blows on them, and then continue to rain blows on them, even though there's a bunch of teachers around you trying to pull you off. I can't emphasize this enough. This happens all the time. Maybe not teachers getting knocked out, teachers being pushed, Verbally harass is definitely number one. That happens in almost every classroom, or the vast majority of classrooms all across the United States. And by the way, there's a lot of parents going, oh, good, that's fine. Oh, yeah, this should be verbally harassed. The amount of people I've talked to that think that stuff like this is funny is mind-blowing. Students nowadays will film this stuff. We've done that on the Bald Brad Show. They will sit there. They won't assist a teacher that's literally knocked out, getting beaten, blows to the head. They're more likely to film it and laugh about it than they are to actually help somebody. It's such a crazy time we live in. An arrest report states that the arrested student said that he will beat her up every time she takes away his game, according to Fox 35, referring to the teacher's aide. The aide was taken to a local hospital where she was released and is believed to have broken ribs and significant bruising. Well, I believe she'll be out of work for at least several weeks if she plans on returning. I don't think she plans on returning, folks. She ain't never going to have to work again, let me tell you. Let me tell you. The actions of the student are absolutely horrendous and completely uncalled for, Sally said. We hope the victim will be able to recover both mentally and physically from this incident. Thankfully, students and staff members came to the victim's aid before the SRDs could arrive. Our school should be a safe place, both employees and students. What I tend to see is the students are always given priority over the employee, which always baffled me because the student's going to be in high school for about 4 years. The employee would love to be there for their entire time, 30 plus years. But it's time and time again where students, they commit some sort of behavioral problem and nothing comes to fruition. They're just dropped back in the classroom and leave it up to the teacher to deal with when the teacher was just harassed verbally. And the reason why I always think that's crazy is because you go into any other place of business, which a school is, by the way, for that employee. It's a place of business. They are a teacher. That is their career, but it also is their job. You have another coworker talk to you in the same manner that students talk to their teachers, there'd be so many HR violations, it'd make your head spin. And somehow we just allow that to happen in school. It's okay for a teenager to sit there and curse out a teacher. 100% okay. I don't think it's okay for a teacher to curse out a student. I think the teacher should be written up or fired for it. But when we say hold a teenager to that same standard, we can't do that because they're teenagers. They're just kids. They're just kids. They're just supposed to act like that. I've heard of teachers being shot. That happened most recently. Literally, a teacher was shot in the face. Shot in the body as well. That's happened multiple times across the United States. Stabbed. This happens every year, by the way. Verbally abused, punched, kicked, broken leg, which is the one we just covered last week. This is always happening. We literally talked about, I think it was Prince County last year. It was last year, March, I believe. We talked about it because it was the first 3 months of the school year. Had like hundreds of arrests in one county in the school year. So you have students getting arrested left and right. But, hey, nothing should happen to this. So luckily, this broke waves and went like mega news here because this is from Fox News and other outlets are covering it going, what's going on? What probably would have happened here if this never hit national airwaves, student would be back in the classroom in like 2 weeks. Probably a week suspension. Maybe juvenile detention would have been involved. Maybe. But I could see this kid coming back at that school probably with the same teacher. You might be baffled, but I'm not baffled because that happens all the time. Schools are being destroyed because we don't hold students to a certain standard, nor really teachers as well. And you're just seeing a massive destruction of our education system, the dumpster fire that it is. And I'm curious to what you guys think about this because you might be going, well, I'm glad that student, is being charged with a felony, which is a good thing. But at the same time, how do we stop this from never occurring in the first place? And what you're really seeing in the classroom is there's a lot of bad kids and a lot of good kids. Those bad kids, if they have a lot of discipline, should be removed from the classroom. They should not be in there with the general population whatsoever. And if they don't want to get their ish in line, then you forfeit a certain education that you can get at that public school. That's what adult school is for. You can go there. But I don't think it's fair that you have good kids that want to get a good education, but yet we have bad kids in the same classroom that are disrupting the classroom constantly, attacking teachers, verbally abusing them and treating them in the wrong way, inculcating certain values into the good kids and thinking that it's acceptable to talk to teachers like that. So now the good kids are starting to do it and you have a crumbling effect. Whereas if you remove the bad kids from the classroom, showing students that, look, we're not messing around as administration. You want to sit there and mess around. If you want to talk to an employee like that, you can go ahead and talk to the employee at home or you can get an education else somewhere. But we can't do that again because they're just teenagers. We have no standards for these kids anymore. And people think I'm kidding when I say that. I'm not coming from an educational background, you guys. I've only been in teaching for 3 or 4 years. I'm coming from a decade of public accounting. So when I came into the classroom from when I was in high school, it is drastically different. If you had an opportunity to be a fly on the wall, I'm telling you right now, your head would spin if you saw our public education system. And I've been in both, by the way. So how do we fix all this? You need religion back in school. I've worked in the private sector in education. I've seen what religion in school does to kids and the morality that it builds. I'm not saying the kids are perfect, but the discipline issues that you have in a private school compared to public school are vastly different. Granted, you can easily kick out a kid in public school as well, really quickly compared to public school. But public school needs to be treated as if it is a private school, and you're not guaranteed an education just because you show up. There needs to be consequences, and what you're seeing from this education system is the consequences are going downhill. There are districts that aren't even doing detentions anymore. You actually, if a kid did something to a teacher, there actually is no discipline. And people are like, oh, well, that seems a little far-fetched. No, you can Google it yourself and actually look it up. There are districts that are doing away with any detentions whatsoever for any sort of discipline whatsoever. They're not suspending kids anymore. There's no on-campus suspension. There's no detentions. And that's why our school system's crumbling, because you can't hold anybody accountable because the Democrats are running the show in the education system. And once you hold somebody accountable, well, now you're harming them. Now you're hurting their feelings. Now you're doing this or that. There was literally an article that came out, talked about how students on campuses now have to report microaggressions. That somebody might have hurt them, might have hurt their feelings. No, I'm not kidding. Now it's all about the feelings. So if you said, hey, you know what, you got 35 problems of homework tonight, all of a sudden you hurt their feelings. Now they're mentally distressed. Now you might be in trouble as a faculty member. So that's where we're going. That's where the education system is heading. And you can look to London for that kind of happening right now. If you have any sort of disparity in your grading between races, you have the option of being fired. That's from the United Kingdom, and that will flow over here in the United States as well. And we're already seeing the ramifications of that happening in some places around the United States. If you want a good book to read about that a little bit, it's called The Vanishing American Adult by Ben Sasse. He used to be the senator of Nebraska. I believe he's now the president of the University of Florida, the Gators. I think the Gators is the University of Florida. Somebody will correct me in the comment section. But anywho, enough of me rambling, folks. If you haven't already checked out, check out baldbrad.com. We got merchandise. Also, check out the join tab on our YouTube channel. You can join our membership for $4.99 a month if you would like. Don't feel like you have to, folks. It's just there because people have emailed me. They want to join. They want to sit there and support the show any means possible. And we also have a $9.99 option. It's just an opportunity for you basically to donate every month. You get a badge and you can kind of rank it up over time and stuff like that. But that is there. Check that out. Again, it's the Join tab. If you go to the Bald Brad Show YouTube page, you will see it. I believe it's next to the subscribe, but it's called Join. And we would love for you to join and support the show monetary-wise, or heck, just you watching and hanging out with us. I love you guys. And again, head over to baldbrad.com. Check out our new book that we're releasing March 13th. It's called Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. It's about basically destroying the narrative of the progressive left and Democrat Party, which is a narrative that's going to destroy this country from the inside out. And so we got to equip ourselves with the means and the wisdom to fight that narrative that they're trying to push so we can keep and make America great again, folks. So pre-order that. Again, it launches March 13th. If you go to our website, you will see a title banner up at the top called book. You could pre-order that now. Heck, you could buy the ebook now. The ebook's actually out. You can read that right now as I'm talking. You can purchase it. You'll be able to get it at Barnes & Noble's, Amazon. All the major distributors will have it starting March 13th. Again, folks, thank you so much for your love and kindness. You always support me. You're true American patriots, and I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.